Hey, welcome to this week's market report. There has been a pretty significant change in activity between the last 7 days and the beginning of this week. So stay tuned to the market report and find out what's going on. My name is Sean Price. I'm with the Price and Price Group here at eXp Realty. And over the last 7 days, this video was being shot on Wednesday. So the previous 7 days included the 4th of July holiday. And during that 7 days, it seemed like the market had come to a complete stop as the general pulse of the market. We had stopped receiving phone calls from buyers. We had only 2 showings for the whole week. So buyer activity dropped off significantly. Wasn't sure if it was because of the holidays or if it was because of the interest rates. But since then, since we've gotten back from the 4th of July holiday, the activity has picked up significantly. So we've got a lot more buyers that are back into the market. A lot of people seem like they're starting to kind of adapt to the fact that interest rates are kind of settling a little bit. In fact, they've come down just a little bit the last week or so. So it's almost like the market kind of went through a shock period, and then now it's kind of the buyers that were holding off to see what was happening are starting to come back into the market. So it is certainly at a lower level than it was during the kind of frantic activity from 2 months ago or 3 months ago, but it is certainly kind of picking back up a little bit, but just at a lesser degree. So general pulse of the market is that it's a good opportunity for buyers right now because the competition is not nearly as significant. Sellers, it's becoming more and more important for pricing appropriately. I see a lot of sellers that are still pricing too high and expecting the property to get multiple offers, and it's just not happening. But the ones that are pricing appropriately are still getting multiple offers, and the properties are still moving very quickly. So if you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to me. The strategies for both sellers and buyers are very specific to the property. So for example, buyers, your strategy on your offer technique is going to be based on how's the property priced, what's the demand for the property, are you facing multiple offers, or is it an opportunity where you can come in and actually get an inspection contingency and actually have some protections? It's property specific. Sellers, it's very property specific. You have to price your property appropriately. Say that 10 times. But if you price it appropriate for its condition and for its location, then the property will move quickly and it will sell quickly and you will get top dollar. If you overprice the property, you're going to have to do price reductions, and that doesn't look good because then you start getting a lot of lowball offers. So you have to be very strategic. So that's the general pulse. It's kind of picking up, but it's nowhere near where it was 2 or 3 months ago. But it is kind of picking up over where it was last week and then the week before. So let's look at the numbers. All right, so we come down in here, and so buyer activity, again, these stats were run up through today of Wednesday, which included the 7 days, including the 4th of July weekend. So I'm not surprised by these decreases. But you can see over the last several weeks that it's just been a significant decrease in activity. What I kind of expect to see next week when I run these stats is to see these numbers either rebounding up a little bit or at least flattening off, because it seems like based on activity this week, the market's kind of stabilizing. But buyer activity was down 37% last week. Everybody was out of town. Inventory was down 25% last week. Again, sellers know that buyers are not in town because of the holidays, so they're not going to put the properties on the market over a holiday weekend. So both inventory and buyer activity dropped. But what's really important here, everybody's kind of waiting for the crash. And what's really important is that when we're looking at this graph, we want to see if there's a separation of the lines. Okay, a separation where inventory is higher than buyer activity, because that's when demand is when supply is outweighing demand, and that's where you might start seeing price reductions. Okay, so if we go back to the graph here, you can see the blue line is our inventory and the orange line is our buyer activity. So you can see there's been this huge separation here all along this line here, and that's why we had such a strong seller's market. But what's happening here is they've evened out. They're almost moving with each other. So what that's showing us is that buyer activity is matching inventory, is basically what's happening. Now this week it was a little bit lower, but up until this week, buyer activity is actually matching inventory. So that's why we're not seeing movement into a buyer's market, because we would have to see this blue line switch and be higher and have the orange line below that. So we would have to see this gap, but we'd see it with the blue line on top and the orange line on bottom. That's when we would see supply outweighing demand, and that's when we might start seeing price reductions. And this is the reason why there's not a lot of people that are expecting a huge market crash. They are expecting a flattening, which we're seeing, and they are seeing a more normalization, and that's exactly what we're seeing. So if we come over here to a buyer's market versus a seller's market, this orange line again represents a neutral market, which is a good, healthy market. And you can see that since the interest rates have kicked in, the market has kind of stabilized and stayed right around this line. We dipped a little bit further over 4th of July weekend, and that's because buyer activity, if you look back over here, buyer activity dropped more than inventory. But I expect next week that this number will come back up, and I expect us to kind of hover right around this 100% mark, which means that it is a good neutral market. If you have any questions about the market, if you have any questions about strategy, if you're ready to get into the market and feel like it's in a place where you want to jump back in, either from the buy side or the sell side, please feel free to reach out to us, and I would be happy to have a conversation with you. All right, we will see you on next week's video, and you guys have a great weekend.